Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nobody Asked Me Guys show. Guys, I'm your host, Melvin Casey Lars, and as always, you know how we roll. I'm so happy that my guests are here. I'm always happy to see all of you young people that's chiming in and listening in. You know, it make an old guy feel really good when I have young people chiming in and listening in because you really are going to learn some things here on the Nobody Asked Me Guys show. And tonight is going to be premium because we have with us none other than Judge Benjamin Jones, and we're going to give you some strict details about Judge Jones. And guys, you know, we always tell you that you can feel free when you go to my site and you pick up the link. You can come on and FaceTime Judge Jones, or you can put your questions in the chat box, and we will convey them as clearly as we can. So, guys, listen, you didn't come to hear me babble, and I want to welcome our guests that are here with Judge Jones, but also as my audience, you know, you guys are guests as well, but tonight we have special guests. So we don't want you guys to feel slighted. We don't want you to feel badly. However, we will be recognizing and hopefully hearing from our special guests tonight. So sit back, relax, and get yourselves ready because you guys, you know, we do History 366. And Judge Jones, I always say to my audience when I'm talking to them, I don't like to do a lot of babble, but I've had the conversations with my audience about all of this crazy talk about this so-called critical race theory. They'll tell them there's no such animal. History is history, so they know how I am with that. But ladies and gentlemen, listen, tonight we are here again. I'm your host, Melvin Casey Laws of Nobody Asked Me Guys show. And as I've stated once and I'll state again, we're here with the Honorable Judge Benjamin Jones. And we're going to tell you a little bit about Judge Jones before we ask him to come on, and we'll be talking with some of his special guests as well. Now, Judge Jones has served as State District Court Judge for the 4th District, Judicial District, I should be saying, for 22 years. He was elected 4 times without opposition. He was Chief Judge from 1999 through the end of 2002. He's a former Army Intelligence Officer in the United States Army, where he attained the rank of captain. Judge Jones earned his BA degree from Southern University and his JD from Boston College Law School, from which he graduated in 1969. After graduating from law school, Judge Jones practiced law as a legal service attorney and managing attorney, served a tour of duty as an Army officer, served as an assistant U.S. attorney, deputy legal counsel to Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis, and as a chief administrative law judge. He returned to Louisiana in 1979 and practiced law for 13 years before being elected to the bench. During this period, he served a term as president of the 4th Judicial District Bar Association. He is a graduate of the National Judicial College and has presented at many conferences for the Louisiana Judicial College. He is a past president of the Louisiana District Judges Association and has served as a member and chairman of the Judiciary Commission of Louisiana. Now, young listeners, I want you to hear this. While serving as a member and president of the Louisiana District Judges Association, he secured approval to organize the Judges in the Classroom program, which he chaired for 10 years. In 2010, Judge Jones secured approval to organize, the Judges Assistance Program, the mission of which is to address the problem of judges sitting while impaired. Judge Jones served as Judge pro tempore on the Second Circuit Court of Appeal in 1994. From June 1, 2009 to November 18, 2009, Judge Jones served as an Associate Justice pro tempore on Louisiana Supreme Court. Judge Jones is the recipient of the Louisiana Bar Foundation Distinguished Jurist Award for the year 2011. Now, a little additional information, guys, we're going to share with you about Judge Jones here. Judge Jones, again, who's such a phenomenal man, Judge Jones is the 10th of 14 children born to Sam and Ella Jones of Lake Providence. Now, for my guests that's in India and all these other places, guys, I know, you know, thank goodness we have you from Africa, we have you from India, we have you from all over the place. You got to understand, Lake Providence is in an area in South Louisiana. And so I know that some of you may not be familiar with that name, but we just want to give you a little insight. Now, obviously, I repeat, he's the 10th of 14 children born to Sam and Ella Jones of Lake Providence. He grew up in church, where his father was a deacon and his mother a mother of the church. In his senior year in high school, he served as acting Sunday school superintendent. He attended Southern University and in the first year, while there, taught a Sunday school class. He has been a member of the Zion Traveler Baptist Church since 1979, where he has been a trustee since 1980 and chairman of the trustee board, since 1981. He is a teacher of the men's Sunday school class at Zion. He and Sue attend church on average at Zion at least 48 Sundays each year. Do the math, guys. How many weeks are there in a year? And have done so during the entirety of their great marriage. Now, a few things we're going to talk here briefly. Notable career achievements. Judge Jones is the first black person who grew up in Lake Providence and became a lawyer, and the first to become a judge. You guys know how I go on and on about being the first. Everybody like to say, well, I know this, that, and the third. We're not talking about this, that, and the third. You can only be one. There's only one first. Okay? Judge Jones was the first black person who grew up in Lake Providence and became a lawyer, and the first to become a judge. Iconic and definitely historical. He is the first black person to sit as a judge on the 4th Judicial District Court for the parishes of Ouachita and Morehouse. Another first, historical and iconic. He was elected in 1992 unopposed and was elected unopposed to 3 additional 6-year terms. He has sat by appointment on the Second Circuit Court of Appeal and on the Louisiana Supreme Court. Due to his work as a judge, his portrait hangs in the Louisiana Supreme Court and is the only portrait of a district judge hanging there. Another iconic point, and history. We got to deal with it, guys. He retired in 2014, but went back to the court 2 months later to serve as court administrator and supernumerary pro tempore judge. Judge Benjamin Jones, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm blushing. You can't see it, but I am.
Well, Judge, I'll tell you, sir, anytime we have anyone as great as you, and please allow me to say again, my audience know how I am. And we like to make sure that we honor those that deserve the honors. And you are exemplifying that. Every piece of information that we pick up, everything that we look at, everything that we see is simply saying an iconic historian. So we're just very blessed and very enthused that you're here with us this evening. We know that there are some special guests here, Judge Jones, and before we ask you to dive in, if we could have our guests, if they don't mind, if they will introduce themselves to our audience and tell us their connection to Judge Benjamin Jones.
I am Jean McIntyre, and
Good evening.
I grew up with Judge Benjamin, really as a sister, even though I am his niece. I am his second oldest sister's oldest child, but we grew up together as sister and brother, and I am so proud of him. And I've known him all his life, all my life, and I just known him to be a person of integrity. And I'm so proud that he is being honored tonight.
Thank you very much for that. And we are honored that Judge is here.
Evening, everyone. My name is Sue Jones, and I am Judge Jones's wife. And I am just so proud of him. And he is a wonderful, you talked about him and all of his accomplishments as a judge, but I want to tell everyone what a wonderful husband and father that he is. We have 3 children, including his oldest child, and then we have Christina and Jordan Jones, and he is just a wonderful person, and we're all very proud of him.
I'm Christina Jones. I am Judge Jones's daughter, and I'm that was a great introduction, and he is, I can attest to the fact that he is in fact a wonderful father and a wonderful man, and I'm so happy to be able to join today and to listen to this podcast with everyone.
This is Kenneth Green, nephew of the Honorable Judge Jones, and I want him to know how much I appreciate him being a role model all these years, especially for the men in this Blockwood family. So appreciate him just being a role model and just being there for the family.
Appreciate you, Gunnar.
My name is Andrew Dixon Jr. I am Uncle Ben's great nephew by Uncle Ben, the Honorable Judge Jones. I want to tell Honorable Jones, I love you. Thank you very much for everything you've done for the family. and he's always been there to help and support me and give me encouragement and to be a great leader and example. And I just want to say thank you. That was a great introduction, and I am blessed and honored to get to listen to the podcast today.
Maria Casey Ingram. I am Uncle Ben's niece. It's an honor to be on here and listening to his story. It's going to be very interesting, and thank you for having us.
Let us take care of my oldest daughter, Athena. She just came on.
Just saying hello. Sorry I'm late. It's been a hectic day, but I'm glad to join and I can't wait to listen.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
And this is Rosalind Jones Lewis. I'm a niece of Judge Jones. I am also a lawyer, and I just want to attest that his guidance and mentorship in the legal field has not only impacted my life, but so many others in our family who also followed him in our profession. And to have someone of his ethics and morals to guide us on this journey has been an awesome contribution to our lives. And we love you, Uncle Ben.
Love you back.
Been great having you guys here, and I have to say, Judge Benjamin Jones, it's always very, very, very refreshing when we can have individuals that know you intimately. And we know how a lot of TV shows or talk shows or podcasts or whatever, and you have a guest that many times is just a talking head and they have no idea who you are. So what is refreshing for the Nobody Asked Me Guy show? I'm looking at all the thumbs, all the hearts that are going up and that kind of thing. And that's saying that you're receiving a lot of love. So as we proceed with this process, kind sir, now we know that you are the 10th of 14 children. And we've talked about the names of your parents, and you and I talked before coming on the broadcast is that, people don't really know the story. Will you share with us just a little bit from the inception, from the young Benjamin Jones through this transition?
This is, we lived in the country. My parents were farmers. And in my early years, we didn't have electricity even in the house. It was in the late 40s, like back in 1948, approximately, when we first had electricity. We did farm work, and I'm 77 now. I've been working since I was 5 years old. Let me tell you something. That wasn't illegal child labor. My folks were out in the cotton field on our farm and so forth, and I was out there with them, and I wanted to be out there with them. For one thing, without electricity and radio and all that, it wasn't anything to listen to. So it was fun to be out there with the family. So my earliest days involved working hard, and I've always worked hard. That was a foundational experience for me. You and I were talking about at the end of Till. Killing, and you expressed that you remember that, and that you were affected by it, and I shared with you how much I was upset by it, and it really influenced me to be active when I grew up in fighting for justice. We worked in the family farm fields, and we worked on plantations. I tell this story, and some people just can't believe it. I used to have to work 9 hours a day for $3 a day. 9 hours a day. I didn't misspeak. 9 hours a day for $3 a day. So I know about work. I know about and that was the best that we could do, because there was a fix going on where that was the most we could get paid for going out there and doing the work. But so I always worked hard, and it never bothered me to work hard. I came through the teenage years, continuing to work, and my father let me know when I was 15 that if I wanted to go to college, I was going to have to make it happen because they weren't going to be able to finance my education. And that let me know that I was going to have to take care of the business, and I did. I was able to do all that I needed to do to get to go to college at Southern University. It was a very nurturing environment, Southern University. We had, you mentioned that I taught Sunday school the first year at Southern University. I don't think they have that anymore, but in those days at least, the HBCUs were very nurturing environments, and these first-time college-educated kids who went off to college, they needed that kind of nurture, and I'm very happy that I went to Southern because it was a good environment for me. I worked hard, decided to. As you mentioned, I became a captain in the Army, but I had to first get to be an officer. And so I took the coursework along with regular political science was my major. But I also took coursework that amounted to a minor, and that is ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps. Upon completion of that coursework, which required that I take extra courses. Sometimes I had to take 21 hours. And that means busting my behind working, studying. But I graduated and was commissioned a second lieutenant in the Army. Got a deferment for law school when I graduated from college and went to Boston College Law School. And graduated in '69. Passed the bar in Massachusetts and worked a while there. Had to go in the Army because I had that obligation, you see, having been commissioned and then deferred. And so in 1970, I went in the Army and as a first lieutenant because I got credit for the time that I had spent from graduation until I went in. And so after a year, I was promoted to captain. And then after 2 years in the Army, I went back to Boston and served as a legal assistance program, Boston Legal Assistance Program. This is where we young lawyers assisted people who couldn't afford lawyers in civil matters. And so I did that both before I went in the Army and then after I got back out of the Army, I went back to the same program and became a leader of the group. But I was in Massachusetts for from 1966 when I went up there to law school until 1979. I did well there. I was, as you read out, I was assistant U.S. attorney. I was the deputy legal counsel to the governor of Massachusetts. I was a administrative law judge, but in '79, Governor Dukakis had lost the election in '78, and the way it works is people who work for government, when the leader leaves, then you have to leave too. So I was going to have to get out of there. So we moved back to Louisiana, and that was a blessing. It has been to Monroe, Louisiana, and that has been a blessing. I've done well here. But the interesting thing is that unlike some communities, the Monroe community was welcoming of people who didn't grow up here. And so a lot of people that I know and who became elected officials and so forth didn't grow up in Monroe, in Washita Parish. But this city, this parish was very welcoming. But I want to tell you this though, when I came back in 1979, the very first month after I got here, I was in federal court fighting for the segregation of the school system here in the Monroe area. Had a federal trial there, and resulted in a judgment being rendered that promised to actually desegregate the schools. You see, even in '79, there was tremendous resistance to true desegregation plans. And so even in '79, you remember that it was 1954 when the Brown versus Board of Education case came down. So you're talking about a long time that had passed, and nothing effective had happened. So my brother and I, Charles Jones, who practiced law together, were in federal court in July. I moved here in June of '79. In July, we were in federal court representing the Black community in the desegregation case. And what we did, sir, is this. My brother and I, we have a lot of cases like that, and also reapportionment cases. We're gonna be having reapportionment coming next year. And it's a very important process. And what had been happening is that the elected bodies here in this area had not reapportioned timely. And as late as 1984, the Monroe City School Board had not reapportioned. And the reason is because if they reapportioned, they would lose power. And so what we did is we filed a lawsuit to force reapportionment, the drawing of district lines properly. The result of which was that we ended up having a majority of the districts having a majority of Black population, which resulted in, at the next election, a majority of the school board members were African Americans. And we did a lot of that kind of work with other bodies as well, besides school boards, like police juries. Police jury is the governing authority for the parish. Louisiana has parishes, unlike the other areas that have districts, but Louisiana has parishes. And so that is the kind of work that I threw myself into, and was very active in that regard. And I'll tell you something else too. My brother and I received threats by phone and by mail, and our law office was set on fire. So, it was even at that time in the early '80s, there were still risks involved in the kind of work that we did, fighting for justice and for equality and trying to make sure that elections were fair and election districts were drawn properly. So that's kind of a run through of what what I've done.
May I interrupt a second? One thing I did want to ask, because a lot of our young people are not familiar really with our HBCUs. And as you talk about the offices, the office being set on fire and the opposition that you met and the reapportionment, that kind of thing, will you please just touch a little bit on the parallel or the differences between Southern University and Boston College in the era? Is what I really want to get at. In the era of desegregation, of segregation, of having opposition, when it comes to being a Southern University Jaguar, as opposed to going to Boston College, what were the transitions? Because I know there was more than one. If you can list with us one or two transitions that may have caused consternation for you as an individual that had been in a family with 14 children, being number 10. And now you've gone from Southern University, which is a historically Black college. You've been fighting injustice, but now you're at Boston College. Can you kind of share a little parallel with that, or consternations that may have been caused because of that? I know it's a loaded question, so just pick any part you like.
Yeah, let me tell you this. There was a vast difference between education at Southern University and going to Boston College. First of all, let me just say this. I my major, I've told you that, was political science. And when I was a senior, I had to make a decision about what I was going to do, because with just a degree in political science, there's not much you can do except go ahead and get an advanced degree in an area where you can actually get a job. But I decided to apply for law school. Now, Southern University had a law school as well, and I would have applied to go there as well. But what happened is this was a time when Dr. Father Dryden, who was a Catholic priest, was the dean of the Boston College Law School. And he had come to the conclusion that it was time that Boston College Law School be desegregated. So what happened is this: it wasn't just in the South that you had situations where Black people were not represented. What happened is that I was awarded a full tuition scholarship to go to Boston College Law School. Now, there were only 5 African Americans who were in the first year class at that law school, and there had only been a handful who had graduated from the law school in the history of the law school. But now it was a very going to Boston alone was a very different experience. Even the speech, how people talked, short hours and so forth, was a different deal. The atmosphere was different, but of course now I was grown up by the time I went to law school, as compared to when I went as a freshman at Southern University. So I did not suffer any discomfort at Southern Law School. In fact, the dean and the professors they worked the devil out of us, but they were nurturing as well. They wanted to make sure that this class of 5 African Americans that they brought in would thrive, or at least survive. But it was a very different city, Boston, and it was a very different kind of environment there at the law school. We, of course, didn't live on campus like I did at Southern, that kind of thing. You have to live on the economy. But 2 of the 5 of us who started graduated on time. We went there in '66, graduated in '69, and both of us took the bar examination in Massachusetts and passed. But the other 3, one of them did not graduate on time, but did the next year, and the other 2 kind of fell away. So we didn't have all 5 of us completing law school, at least not timely. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure what happened later on with the others who did not graduate on time, because I really didn't keep up with that. But there were 2 very different environments, Boston College and Southern University. The nurturing in Boston College was a different kind of experience than at Southern, was a different kind of experience than in Boston, because of the, as I indicated, I was a grown up then, and the reach out to us by the dean and the professors and so forth was comforting. They did not treat us badly, and so I was happy to have had the opportunity to go there. I would have been happy to go to Southern University, but when I was offered a full tuition scholarship to go to Boston College, I said, well, I grew up here in Louisiana. Maybe I should take advantage of an opportunity to go somewhere else and see the world a little bit. So how people live other places and all. and it was a learning experience because I hardly knew how to take a bus, but it's something it was a decision I'm glad I made. And as I indicated already, my time in Massachusetts was productive. I achieved some successes, but I'm gonna tell you something. Hard work is just so important. And what I'd like young people to understand is that you have to make, if you don't have the resources, a lot of money in the family, this, that, and the other, there are sacrifices that have to be made. And you need to be willing to do that. And you need to be willing to work hard in your academics, students, and work hard in your jobs in order to achieve success. I mean, you're not given much nowadays to advance. You gotta pay for it. You gotta work for it. And again, you gotta be willing to sacrifice. And there were times when I didn't have when I was at Southern, didn't have a meal card, but I managed to get through. And something else, I never ever thought about giving up. So don't ever give up. Keep on fighting. Keep on working. Believe in yourself. And the other thing is this too. A lot of times I didn't know what steps to take to get to where I wanted to go, or even know where I wanted to go. But you know what? As you read, I grew up in the church. God and faith matters. God ordered my steps. And I give him credit for that. It wasn't just me. It was I did my part of working hard and all that kind of thing. But I'm blessed to have had God order my steps, and I'm very dedicated to my church, to my God, and that's my response to that difference there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
As we continue to discuss transition, going from being an attorney to pursuing and achieving the judgeship, was there a particular interest, having been a political science major, that prompted you to want to ascend? Or was it something that just kind of, how can I say, presented itself? You were qualified to do it, and you decided to do it, or was there always something in the back of your mind, in the front of your mind, that was thinking all of the time when you were litigating and when you were moving through processes? And sometimes I'll assume, I know it's not good to assume, but I'll assume sometimes throughout the litigation, there may have been some things that maybe frustrated you. And that's where I'm going when I'm asking about ascending into the judgeship. As you were in the process of litigating, and maybe there were some things that just did not, if I can say, sit right with you, that prompted you to go into the judgeship, or was it something that you aspired to all along?
First of all, let me say this to you. Growing up where I did, I had never seen a lawyer, and certainly not a Black lawyer. When I became a lawyer, and as I explained, when I returned to Louisiana in 1979, and my brother and I and our law firm became very active in school desegregation and so forth, we were all in. We made a difference. But when the Black lawyers in Louisiana, let me tell you what happened briefly. We had to sue Louisiana because what happened is that you had these districts that were majority white, and Black lawyers, no matter how experienced we were, could not get elected in these majority white districts. So what we did, we sued and we won the Supreme Court. And the result was to have districts drawn that were majority Black. which gave African Americans a chance to elect judges of their choice. Now, at the time I ran for judge, first in 1988, I had to run in 2 parishes at large. And I received 95% of the black vote and 5% of the white vote. So obviously I lost. 2 years later, though, after we won that lawsuit, we had districts drawn, and I was actively involved in that as well. Districts drawn that were majority black. The result of which was that when the elections came around the next time, we were able to get black judges elected. And Louisiana probably has more black judges on the bench than any state in the country because of that litigation and so forth. So, but I was the lawyer for the Monroe City School Board. I had taken care of the redrawing of the lines to allow for a majority of the school board members to be African American, and they elected me as their lawyer, and I had been their lawyer for some time. So I was doing well. But when the opportunity came to run for judge, it was something that I wanted to do. So I ran in 88 unsuccessfully, but in 92, when I ran, no one ran against me. And there's 2 reasons for that. A lot of the work we did in school desegregation and reapportionment and all that, we weren't able to get paid for. But the black community remembered our work. And so we were, my brother Charles became a state representative and a state senator. So what happened is that they supported us when we ran for office. And so when I decided to run for judge and no one ran against me, I took my seat and I assumed the obligations of doing justice. And then that's what I've always done. To be fair and just. Justice means an awful lot to me. That's why I'm so upset about what's going on now in southern states that are trying to rig, voting in such a way that it suppresses the black and minority vote. I'm furious about that, so much so that I've thought about, after I retire the second time, maybe doing some more of that kind of work to see if I can make a difference. But that's kind of the story about that.
Okay, well, Judge, and I'm happy that you shared what you shared. I was a little tenuous to ask you about that, so thank you for bringing that out. As you talk about and mention the voter suppression and that kind of thing, and redistricting, when it comes to those of us that are identified as people of color,
yes,
that I'm trying to ask this nicely, that act as if we don't understand what the problem is when it comes to that. What can you give us any advice in that area? As I said, I thank God I have a lot of young audience here, and they are very good and they pay a lot of attention. Can you help us with that? And the reason I'm asking, because there was a reason for me asking about the HBCU and Boston College and the transition. And now, as you mentioned, I too am extremely upset, as you are, with all of the shenanigans that are going on as far as voter suppression.
Yes.
And I find, because I work with young people a lot, and I find we're working with these young people, many of them think that everything is just fine and everything is okay. And they're not really understanding what's really taking place here. Can you help me share with them just a little bit as to why it's so critical that things are not allowed to go the way of voter suppression, even though one would think that it would be something that's self-explanatory. I work with young people all the time, and it's amazing as to the arguments that they try to put up about, oh, well, things are different and things have changed, this, that, and the third. and they're not really understanding what's happening. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Actually, those of us who were born in the 40s and early 50s and so forth, and who experienced, problems of voting, and the civil rights marches and so forth, and participated in that activity, had a fire in the belly that younger people who didn't grow up during that time period don't have. And so part of the reason why we need to work really hard with our younger people and talk to them about the importance of engagement in politics. I mean, in elections and so forth, because elections matter a great deal. Who's in office affects the lives of the citizenry in the district where these people serve, whether it's a representative or senator, or certainly president. The thing that I try to do, and whenever I have an opportunity to talk to young people, is to try to explain to them, how the system really works and why they ought not be comfortable that we've made it and we're all there, because we're seeing now, going back to this business of voter suppression. So we're seeing now that attempts are being made to rig things in such a way as to suppress the vote and affect the outcomes of elections. And I just think that those of us who are adults or who know about what's going on and who retain this fire in the belly to fight the fight and so forth, we need to pass it along. I'm going to say this: for my 3 children, they've got it. They've got it. They're on board with it and so forth because we brought them up, talking to them about these kinds of issues, racism and segregation and all those kinds of things, and the fight that it took to get to where we are today, and the fight that we still need to fight in order to preserve. We're having to fight now to preserve the gains that have been made, not to mention making more gains. The fight is even harder in making more gains. Right now, we just need to do all that we can to motivate our young people to be actively involved in, I want to say it, in politics. And they got to understand they need to vote. So we need to rev up the percentage of our young people who are active in politics and who do vote, so that we can hopefully at least retain what we've gained until we can gain more, get in a position to gain more. And if we don't do that, we can end up losing ground. We can actually end up losing ground that we fought for all these decades, to go forward.
Well, just thank you for that. And before we talk about the honor that you received from the Supreme Court and having your picture in the hall, being the only non-Supreme Court justice there, I'd like to ask you to address, because of what you just shared, quite frankly, it's very near and dear to me again. As you share the gains and we talk about our young people understanding the importance, having been a former athlete that was said to have been one of the better ones from high school to college to the NFL, do you see it's critical that our athletes get it? I'm looking at Herschel Walker and some of these guys in Georgia talking. To me, they're talking crazy about running against Ref Warnock, etc., and about, well, I enjoy my America. I say all of that because our athletes still seem not to get it. They still seem not to understand that athletics is a title. It has nothing to do with the person, with the quality of life that he will live or she will live, that their family members live, etc. And I see far too many of them, Judge, actually try to put up an argument about, I have to provide for my family, etc. So, I'm putting all this together because as you sharing about losing and gaining and moving forward, do you see any movement at all where we are or addressing those individuals that work with our young people through athletics, through the educational forums, etc., that actually help our kids understand that we are talking about life and we're talking about lifestyles as opposed to whether they can hoist a trophy or as opposed to whether they're arguing about going to LSU or Alabama as opposed to Southern University or Alabama State. Because and I guess this is not really a question, it's a statement that I'm asking you to expound on. I am seeing far too many of these young men, especially, that are not getting it. And I know you share that your three kids definitely get it. And dare I say, this conversation is not about me. I definitely get it. To the point, Judge, even when I was a young man coaching, I did not allow sportscasters to call my kids student athletes. And I tell you, and I have to say this other part, and I'll be quiet. I tell you how much opposition I met from my principals, how much opposition I met from fellow coaches, etc. Nobody could get it through their heads is that when you say student athlete, you are already telling the kid that he or she is not supposed to be successful because they are not supposed to peacefully coexist. And it's so difficult to get people to understand that. So that's why I was asking that question. Judicially,
Yes.
in your walks and when you are touching bases and talking with people, is anyone trying to get our athletes, because they have a major platform, to understand some of the things that you're sharing with us tonight?
Well, they're not in contact with, on a personal basis, athletes, but I do observe what's happening in our country insofar as that athletics is concerned. I am seeing a few more athletes who have made it to the top, who are reaching back and trying to be of assistance and of service. But the thing I'm concerned about is, and have been for some time, and I'm not talking about people who graduated and who are in the leagues right now, but it seems to me that that our athletes who are in the colleges now and moving through, looking toward hopefully getting drafted, in the NFL, for example. I don't get the impression that the great body of athletes are doing what they need to do academically at school to prepare for life, because only 1 or 2% of the athletes who played football are going to get to play in the NFL. I mean,
Yes, sir.
What that tells you is that what about the vast majority of them, and what are they going to do for a living, to make a life for themselves and for their families and so forth? They need to concentrate more on education, getting a degree and advanced degrees, or going into professions to provide for their families going forward. I sometimes think that that not enough emphasis is placed on education, on doing well academically in school, and that the energy that is expended by athletes is spent on the sport rather than the books, and that concerns me. It concerns me greatly, and I think we need to talk about that more.
Yes, sir. And I want to ask you that while I have my audience here because it, that wears me out to no end. And I wanted them to hear because a lot of these young people that are here, some of them I've coached, I know their children, etc. And I wanted them to hear and to understand very clearly from a legal mind the importance of educating their children and getting their children to understand the importance of education and learning what's happening. Because as you said, 1 or 2%, if that many, and it's insane to me that we don't have more individuals that understand exactly what you shared. And dare I say, Judge, I'm looking for a platform to be to be able to get that across because it really irritates me to no end. And I ask people now before we get to the Supreme Court honors that you receive, I would like to just share with you. I ask people all the time, Judge, do you know where the definition student athlete are derived? And I get all kinds of answers. And I tell them, I do simple research. I think it was 1948. And it came at some university, one of our predominantly white universities. An athlete got injured. And I warned you, Jared, that I call, quote, white people my less melanated brothers and sisters. So he was a less melanated athlete.
Yeah.
The parents wanted the university to pay for his injury. The university was trying to look for a way for a scapegoat. They used the attorney at the college. Finally, these attorneys got their heads together, found a loophole, and said, "We are not liable for paying for this young man's injury because he is not an employee. He is a student."
Yeah.
That's how student athlete derived. And it amazes me how we've all been sucked in to think that this is some kind of honor when our kids are being called student athletes and we don't even know the origin of it. And that's so when you talk about them being educated and people learning and understanding the value of education, even the athletics, etc. And that's why I say I'm hopefully you can help me find a platform. I'm looking for a platform because it's sad. It's sad, Judge. I deal with young athletes all the time and their families, and they have no clue as to what their sons are up against. And as I said, that their daughters are up against. They have no clue as to the things that you've just shared. And there seems to me to be that it's intentional. It's intentional. That's why I alluded earlier, to the fact that I didn't even let them call my kids student athletes. And they thought I was off my rocker and thought I was, thought it was me. And I kept saying to them, no, but you're sending my kids the wrong message. Nobody's impressed that they can throw a football, that they can knock one another down on the field, that they can shoot a basketball, etc. Because once the crowd stops cheering, then they're done. So, I want your perspective on that while we have people. Listen, let's move to Judge. Listen, I want you to tell us, please. I know that the Supreme Court of Louisiana District, the 4th District, blessed you with a great honor. And we know that your portrait is hanging in there among those Supreme Court justices. Will you talk to us a little bit about that, please?
Well, let me tell you how that happened. I have worked very hard as a judge to try to make a difference in the justice system. I have started a program to give back because I thought it was good for judges to go into classrooms and to talk with the children. In particular, I am very bothered by this black on black crime in Monroe, Louisiana, which is not a large city. We have a terrible problem of young black men killing each other. And that is something that needs more and more attention. We are just losing many, many young black lives. And it's very troubling. I don't know what the solution is to it. I wish I could turn a switch and so forth and turn this killing off, but I can't. But I'm concerned about it, and I'm interested in exploring ways of addressing that. Now, with respect to the Supreme Court matter, I started the program of Judges in the Classroom. I also started the program of dealing with judges who sat as judges drunk. We'd have judges get on the bench drunk, falling down drunk. And there was no organized system for dealing with that kind of problem. So I started that as well. I was, selected as being the top judge in the state, in 2011. Those achievements is what led to me being nominated to sit on the Supreme Court for a while, and then that led to was part of the reason why I was able to get my portrait hung in the Supreme Court. It is a high honor, very unexpected, and I'm proud of the achievements. But it took a lot of hard work to get there.
That's fantastic, Judge. When we address and talk about the Supreme Court, and as you share about sitting judges and the unfortunate situation of their condition when they sit on the bench, how does that relate to people that are unjustly sentenced? And are they able to appeal if they happen to be sitting in a courtroom and they are given sentences that were given down by the judges that were inebriated or had some other issues? Are those kinds of convictions appealable, or is this just an oh well thing? How does that work?
Well, if the judge hands down a sentence that is inconsistent with the law, then of course an effective appeal can be had. If a judge, while drunk, sentences somebody, it's likely that there'll be error involved, and if there's error, then that can be remedied by an appeal. But the effort that I was making was to broadly try to identify judges who were having those kinds of problems, get them into treatment, and eliminate the problem of judges sitting while impaired. It wasn't always drug, sometimes it was drugs and not alcohol, but that program is operating well here in Louisiana, and we're helping deal with those kinds of problems with judges.
Thank you. Judge, last thing, I know I've kept you a long time. I just want to reiterate again, and if we can just go back to the Judges in School program. I started asking you questions, and things that you were sharing with me was so interesting. I missed that on my note. I wanted us to, if we could highlight that just a little bit, as far as that program, is it still ongoing? If there were young people that were interested in the program, would they contact their board members, superintendents? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Now, we have an act from the Supreme Court down. Our Chief Justice is very strongly supportive of the program, Judges in the Classroom program. And what we do is we go to schools and we talk to students about law and the legal system. I hand out, during Constitution Week, for example, when I go and make a presentation, I give them a copy of the Constitution, give the kids a copy of the little pocket-sized Constitution and so forth. And we try to educate them, because so many young people have finished high school without really understanding how law and the legal system actually operates. And so the point is education, so that they will know and understand how things work. And also we attempt to encourage them to commit themselves to academic achievement, and to stay away from violation of the law, because it's going to be their downfall. So yeah, it's still a very active program. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Louisiana is on top of it and pushing it very hard to have judges go into the classrooms. And also I and other judges would bring students into the courthouses so they could go in the courtrooms and see how the court works, how a trial is conducted and that sort of thing. And I think it's a useful thing, and I'm really committed to it. Organized it statewide 20 years ago, and we're moving on. And I think making a difference.
Okay, fantastic. I know I'm certainly going to do some more research into that because that sounds like a great program, and I'm sure that it is. Are there any parting words you'd like to leave with us this evening?
No, except I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to have this chat with you, and I hope that there's something that I have said that will impact in a positive way the lives of those who have listened to this talk we've had. I very much want to leave this with this saying: do right, work hard, and keep the faith. I mean, I think it's important. Faith matters, and if you're faithful, God will reward.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Judge Benjamin Jones, for that. Listen, guys, this has been the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. I'm your host, Melvin Casey Lars, and we want you to make sure that you take heed. Judge, I can tell you that it was very well received. You probably saw me glancing up here. I was looking for my thumbs and things going up. Is there an address that you'd like them to leave, or would you like them to contact me if individuals are interested in finding out more about the Judge in Schools program?
Well, I don't want to put my phone number on.
I understand.
But
I understand.
I'm a judge of the 4th Judicial District Court in Monroe, Louisiana. You can reach me there.
Okay. Okay, guys, you heard it. Judicial Court 4 in Monroe, Louisiana. You can find out and check with our Honorable Judge Benjamin Jones there. Judge Jones, it's been great, and we appreciate all these special guests tonight, and we certainly appreciate having you here. We look forward to speaking with you again, and please allow me to share with you, sir, that please look for a notification from me. I'd love to talk with you more about how we can talk to our young people, how we can work with these young people about stopping the killing, the black-on-black crimes, and that kind of thing. So I will be in touch, and it's been great, and I do appreciate, and the Nobody Asked Me Guy show is very honored to have had your presence.
Honored to have been here, and thanks to my guests who chimed in.
Thank you. Everyone have a great night, and it's been great talking with you. Look to speak with you again.